Hey, team players, welcome back. Today's an absolutely amazing day. Obviously, we'll be answering all of your questions that you're throwing at us here, but we're also going to begin the phase of the year where we start doing our DraftKings playoff best balls. With that being said, we got a little bit of feedback from you guys, the team players, yesterday, wanting to keep us a little bit tighter to the live questions that are coming at us here today. So that way we're right here in the vibe with you rather than kind of sometimes being 40 minutes behind the question coming up. So this is an attempt to do it. If you sent us questions before the show started, we're going to hit those kind of shotgun as we get through the episode going on. And I'm letting you guys know that as we start here. We're going to be starting here with Trone Force's question. We love everything we've gotten from everyone here so far. Jesse, welcome back. KJ, you guys know you are sending the things. Jason, I just feel until Bob gets here that I'm just under the question of, do you guys hear me again? And it makes me a little bit nervous. So instead of doing what I did on last Monday, which was answering all of your questions first, Jason, I'm going to be kicking off here and going, like I said, in the Trones, dive into it. Bob will be here at any time. You know how it is in the world of schools. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. So Barkley's back at practice. Yeah, not really much to worry about the other day with him being off. He's a veteran. Veteran days off are things. Had a chance to pick Bigsby up off of waivers this morning, but didn't want to drop Debo or Corum. Happy's back at practice. Quite frankly, I wouldn't worry about cutting Debo at this point. There's not a whole lot about him bringing stuff to the table that I'm worried about missing, for lack of a better way of saying it. And, I think that that's fine getting Bigsby on your roster. There's certainly an argument that's saying that there is no doubt Philly is in a smash running back start right now. And having the backup there on Force just makes a ton of right spot there. So Trone, that's where I would go with there all day. Josh, quick hitter. Need to start 3 receivers out of Mbuke, Lamb, Rice, BTJ, Coker. Rice is dealing with a concussion, so he's 50-50 to play. And T-Mac didn't practice today, but Wednesdays really don't mean anything. That's exactly right. Wednesdays don't mean anything in the world of injury reports. So let's start with this. I do believe that Rice is going to play. And because of that, it might seem like I'm dodging your question. So I'm going to actually answer this 2 different ways. If Rice plays, obviously you're starting Rice. So it would be Rice, Lamb, and in my opinion, Mbuke. BTJ is the question for this. Watching that Jacksonville game on Sunday, it was very apparent that they were getting the ball to BTJ after the game was effectively already decided. And in that case, that was the second quarter. And BTJ was kind of just stop complaining BTJ, kind of nip it in the bud before it really takes off, which good coaching on that. That's very good to do there. But the bigger issue is that I don't think you're getting a lot out of them. So I would rather probably go Coker, but I'm not super excited about any of those Carolina receivers. Carolina is trying to mitigate damage against them. The way they are doing that is by flat out not letting Bryce Young throw the ball up. There are 3 receivers they have in Tet, Leggett, and Coker effectively are all B's to B minuses. And it's certainly a C plus at best quarterback. So with that being said, I just don't think that there's a lot of separation ball to go around with Coker. Coker might end up being the best receiver in that room when it's all said and done, but they're not going to believe it on Sunday. So Coker would be my last on that list, but BTJ and Coker are so far as a distant gap. But after the first 3, it's not even funny. But I would give the edge to BTJ. Jesse, who are my top defenses to stash for next week? All right, that's a deep dive. I'll have to get that one. Wait for Bob to be here for that. But I will put that one on the burner for Bob being in here for that one for you, Jesse. Quick hitter. Start 1 tight end. Fannin, Warren, Parkinson with no Devontae. That part is supposed to be noted there a lot. Or Waller also available, but I can't risk it with yours. All right, so let's talk about this Miami situation just for a hot minute here. We are seeing clear desperation of try to save my job under any cost with Daniels. And if you can make a rookie look good, even if it's in the garbage time of the season, you can make a rookie look good. And there is a wealth of people who have made careers out of making one rookie look good for 10 hot minutes. And if he can throw any other feather in his cap to do that, he's going to. I mean, for real, he's going to be a coach next year. The difference is he going to be making north of 2 million or south of 1 million? And that's what these next couple of weeks are going to come down to. So I firmly believe that Daniels, the coach of Miami, is the front runner for the Raiders job. And what he needs to do to prove that is show that I can make the tight end something, because the Raiders are all about making Bowers a dude. And they're probably going to be doing it with a young quarterback. This is as much of a dress rehearsal for the Raiders job as possible. All personal aside about how I cannot stand the guy, he is not exactly a bad offensive mind. He can see things coming and in general makes crazy things. And if he can get a rookie to develop, again, he did make Tua the number one passer one year, it's going to be a thing. Miami, pulling up my heart chart here, is playing the Bengals. That is the defense you play against. Yours are not. So Waller, to me, is probably the front runner. Now, with Parkinson, and really all Rams tight ends, they're so hit or miss. I mean, there's a very good chance that you're going to see the third string receiver or fourth string receiver take up what should go to a starter, because that's how he builds his offense. The Rams are built to go to the receivers, period. So I'm leaning to Waller out of that group of five, because I cannot touch a Colts passing receiver, and I do not trust Shedeur Sanders to get the ball to Fannin at all. I'm so glad you guys hear me. We're shouting that out again, Josh. We already got a shootout team here. We're going through our live questions as we talked about yesterday. And to get to the next one here, Jesse, does the Rice concussion concern me? I don't really know if it's a matter of being concerned or not. To me, it's black and white. If he dresses, he plays. If he doesn't, he doesn't. So as someone who owns Rice, I'm playing it. But I've also told you guys consistently from the moment the schedule was released, I wanted to divest of Chiefs when push came to shove. And in doing so, I might become right by default, but I'm not worried about his concussion, because if he can play, he is their offense. And they're going to force it to him regardless. It's a medical answer. At the end of the day, we know Sunday at noon. And from there, we go with our answer. So I'm not worried about it. I am making a backup plans expecting him not to play. But if he does, I'm 100% starting him.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would definitely agree with that. I think that when it comes to any injuries like this, especially concussions, that it does make you a little bit hesitant for long-term things within the game itself. Like, say he takes a shot in the middle of the field again, and they pull him out, right? The good old Jackson Dart Tua protocol, right? But when you look at it and you say, like, does he give you the best chance to win? I think he does. So I think at the end of the day, like Joe said, if he's playing, he's in the lineup. If he's not playing, then obviously he's not. But I think that decision will ultimately be made for you when the games hit. Now, if for some reason that let me look at the timeline here. We're going to know week 16 here. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to be playing at 1:00. So if you have if you at least have an option for yourself, you have options open to you to pivot into, I think that it's fine. Now, for example, though, if you were planning on playing Rice versus, let's say, DJ Moore, or Terry McLaurin or, Devonta Smith, then we'd like to see some good news by Friday. So if we saw some good news by Friday for Rashee Rice, or if we didn't see good news and we wanted to pivot, the options for Green Bay are open, probably Chicago as well as Philly. So something to think about, right?
So Jesse, let's do your deep dive now that Bob's here. So top 5 defenses to stash for the championship round next week. So I'm going to read off real quick what I believe the best defenses are going to be about my top 10 or so. And Bob, you tell me if you think enough there are stash value. So number 1 being Houston. I think the Saints are going to have an amazing output next week. Seattle, ironically Tennessee, both of the LA teams, and that's the list that I think are going to give you the best outcomes in terms of points against for the following week. That's really kind of the areas that I'm looking at for next week. As far as them being a stash, obviously Denver too. Sorry, I skipped over Denver because there's no way Denver's not already in your league. Mm-hmm. The one that I think probably is the most pick upable, well, I can say that sentence good, is probably the Saints, because they aren't going to be on anyone's roster. And I get that a lot of people are afraid of starting the Saints over anything, but Tennessee doesn't really bring anything to the table offensively. I get that they got a lot of bells and whistles, but in terms of people thinking Cam Ward can do stuff, but he really can't do stuff. So I would say that the Saints for me are one of the stashes that I want to have going into the next week.
For me, one of the teams I am targeting next week is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh plays Cleveland. Now, those games, those interdivisional games, especially at the end of the season, tend to be a little bit weird at times. This game's in Cleveland. The weather could potentially be icy, rainy.
Yeah, those snow games are always a good stash. Yeah.
Icy, rainy there. They do have a heated field, as most teams do in the Northeast here. But the Steelers,
they don't turn it on.
Ever since Mike Tomlin got called out a couple weeks back, it seems that they're laying on the pudding a little bit more. And I do think as they prepare for a playoff push, they don't want to lay it in easy as they have been in previous years where they felt comfortable about making the playoffs, et cetera, and then they go in and waste their first round game and they suck. I do think that they're going to want to continue to stay competitive against a division rival like Cleveland. Now, these games at the end of the year,
they also can win the division. They can win the division and have the following week off if they beat Cleveland.
These games always go a little bit weird at times. And Cleveland has won a couple of these, and Cincinnati, et cetera, when they played them at the end of the year. But I do really like Pittsburgh. The other team that I really like defensively next week, and it's one that's kind of not comfortable in a way. But I think that whatever we see out of the Giants or Arizona in the next week is going to be pretty interesting to me. Again, and even Cincinnati to a degree, right, is that we know that Cincinnati's run defense is atrocious. Oh, yeah. And their pass defense is slightly better because their run defense is so atrocious. Now, we look at it and say, if Jacoby Brissett's going to throw the ball 30 times, there's a chance that Jacoby Brissett can make a couple of mistakes there. And so the Bengals, for me, is a play that's not based off of points, but based off the potential opportunities for turnovers. I think that that's an interesting way to go. Similarly, on the Arizona side, Arizona doesn't generate a lot of points like that either. But I think and I wouldn't stash them by any means, but I'm simply saying that I think that they're interesting enough. On the other side of the table here, also, the Giants. The Giants haven't been playing well by any stretch of the imagination, but neither have the Raiders. And
I guess the Raiders is safe.
I do have
to. In New York, right, Bob?
That game's in Vegas. Okay. So I do have to question.
I'm a Giants fan anyway.
I do have to question how many points are going to be scored in that game. But one of the defenses that might be slept on moving into next week is Dallas. Dallas plays Washington. And now there's a lot of things happening in Dallas right now, but we know that Washington can at times put up points. And so my question is, will there be turnovers on the table there in that game? I think there will be. So I think Dallas is interesting to add into all the defenses that Joe has suggested already. I think the best defenses on the slate for next week are Denver, Houston, Again, those teams are not available to you. I also think
Seattle's not available to you.
I also think, thirdly, that Jacksonville had a stand-up week last week. Now they're kind of locked and loaded for a playoff spot already, but they play Indy next week, and there's a chance that Jonathan Taylor could.
That could be for the division.
But I do think that Jacksonville is a good play, and also Chicago and San Francisco. This game, both of these teams need to. Let me correct that. Chicago needs to basically win out to block a Green Bay path to a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think Chicago is very interesting against San Francisco because San Francisco is also playing for a playoff spot. But if they win this week, and same with Chicago, they're kind of locked and loaded into the playoffs.
Oh, Chicago's not guaranteed anything. Chicago loses out, they're not in.
No, I'm saying the Niners are.
Oh, the Niners will be, yeah.
So I could see a universe that in week 17, if the Niners have locked up a playoff spot and moving into this next week, and
there's no way they'll have locked up a wild card with two games left. At the end of week 17, they could.
Listen, right now they're 10-4.
I get it.
The Chargers
10-4.
The Chargers, Seattle, it is what it is. But we have Philly, who's going to win their division. We have Green Bay fighting with Chicago, and we have Tampa Bay, who is leading their division currently.
Yeah, but the Niners still have a chance at the division. They're not going to be phoning it in when they got that.
Well, what I'm saying is that if the Rams win tomorrow, there is no chance that the Niners have to win a division. So what I'm sharing is that for this reason, I think Chicago can be interesting speculatively because there's a chance that week 17 they may rest Christian McCaffrey. I
think that's more of an 18 move for them because they'll care about leading.
Right. There's a chance that he might get less work, but there is a chance that San Francisco can still make a push.
So guys, here's how we're going to do this logistically for you today. We're going to answer all the questions live as they're coming in, as we mentioned before, so we don't get super behind as you guys punch the questions. We're here. So Bob, I have marked on the side here just so you know the ones that we haven't gone to.
You're in control.
Everything north of that star. And then what we're also going to do, since we know Wednesday is typically a slower question day as it is, we're going to be doing our draft. So once we get past these next three lives, we're going to be starting up our draft and talking about that. But that being said, Brendan, I talked earlier.
Did you answer Praline Jason already?
Bob, if you're looking at our side chat, everything that is Jesse's question of start two of these guys and above, I have not answered yet.
Okay, so we'll get to those questions before we start our draft.
So, so Brendan, I answered a little bit earlier in a Miami spiel, and I want to hear Bob's take on it. Bob, this is basically my answer for why I believe in yours. Is as much as I personally hate Daniels as a coach. He is a good offensive mind. He might be in a great offensive mind, and he's definitely trying to get the Raiders' job. There are two requirements the Raiders want.
I'm going to stop you right there. No, I'm going to stop you right there.
Develop a young quarterback.
I'm going to stop you right there. Okay, I'm going to stop you right there.
Stop me there.
The reason I'm stopping you there is that Quinn Ewers does not project for more than 220 yards and a touchdown. Okay.
No, I get that. That's because no one's seen it yet.
While this is a good spot still for Waller, yes, I said it. It's still a good spot for Waller. Projecting backwards from what we know about Ewers is that Gunnar Helm was a great prospect coming out of Texas because of his athleticism and because Quinn Ewers gave him the ball. Mm-hmm. And Waller, who is similarly athletic, although be it older, is a target and a threat in this Miami game. So while I do not trust Quinn Ewers in my lineups at all, I still do trust that he will be able to move the ball and get it to Waller. Do I think that Waller will end up with 2 touchdowns? Absolutely not. Do I think that he more likely projects for 6 receptions for 60 yards? Yes. I think that's totally within Waller's wheelhouse. But Quinn Ewers is not seeing my lineup whatsoever.
Well, so specifically in this question, it's for a super flex. Minshew, Wars, Cam Ward, or Vidal.
Like I said yesterday, and I know, Brendan, you weren't here yesterday. I do think that Gardner Minshew is a good projectable play this upcoming week against Tennessee. When we look at the stats, and this is for anybody looking and trying to play around with, do you want to start Gardner Minshew? Gardner Minshew, again, doesn't project like light years ahead of any quarterback, basically, right? But when we look at it, Tennessee is pretty average against quarterbacks at best, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look at a ceiling for Gardner Minshew, it's definitely not high. You're not going to probably get 25 points out of Gardner Minshew. But it is likely that if Rice plays and Rice is healthy, that you can similarly see Gardner Minshew go for 265 and 2 touchdowns. Okay. It's very likely that something like that were to happen. Now, on the other side of that, you ask about Cam Ward. And Cam Ward similarly projects very, very low. The guy has not gone over 200 yards passing since they played Seattle and has only gotten about 1 or 2 touchdowns a game average, right? At 1.5 average. So for me, Cam Ward is not a guy that I can trust this week, and I can't really trust Quinn Ewers this week. When I look at Kamani Vidal's opportunities project to be way lower than any of these quarterbacks, so I can't Kamani Vidal. So by default, when I project forward that Gardner Minshew is most likely going to get to 2 touchdowns, I think that he is a stronger play over Quinn Ewers because, again, Cincinnati's pass defense has been slightly better than their rush defense. And although they cannot generate a good amount of pressure, Ewers cannot push the ball deep down the field.
Yeah, sure. You know Minshew's going to be. So I get your answer
going to be in front of them. So I have to lean Gardner Minshew in that case.
And it goes right in line where you were at, Brennan, that this all started with Mahomes getting injured and just riding the position.
I think the Rams are in a position to win. I saw a cool meme that was like,
you guys are going to see that when I do my playoff draft here in a minute. There's going to be some Ram isolation.
The Jets have been rebuilding for 25 years, and the Rams have won a Super Bowl and have rebuilt in 3. And the Rams are just such a good team right now. When you look at the playoff contenders, anybody actually on that NFC side could take the Rams down.
Yeah, the NFC, the only thing I'm sure of is the NFC is winning the Super Bowl. Like, I think they're all better than Buffalo and Houston, which, by the way, are both wildcard teams, but probably the AFC's best representatives.
Start one flex. BTJ, Hampton, Marks, Fannin, Carter, Quorum. So, Josh, based off of what I told you yesterday, I think that if Marks is healthy and playing and wants to buck that 14 for 14 trend, that I think Marks is a great play. If I wanted to pivot off of Marks, I trust BTJ this week. Whether that is warranted or not, I think that BTJ, and again, this all depends on if Patrick Surtain is playing or not. But there's a chance, again, like I said, that this game goes in back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And yes, it might favor Jacoby Myers a little bit more, okay? But I think out of that grouping of players, the next one up for me would be Hampton. So if I were to rank those 3 as who I would want to start, I would say Marks, BTJ, then Hampton.
And mine's Marks, Hampton, and no one else.
And that's fair. When looking at projections for the week, BTJ projects somewhere around 12 with a modest ceiling, and Omari and Hampton is somewhere around 12 with a higher ceiling. Yeah. So if that's where you want to lean, if that's how your lineup is made up, that's fine. When we look at Woody Marks, again, if Woody Marks is playing, Woody Marks projects somewhere around 11 or 12 with a lower ceiling than Hampton's. But we haven't seen a ceiling game from Hampton in quite some time, and I don't think we're going to see one this week. So that's kind of where I'm coming from out of that.
So, Bob, are you going to jump in this draft with me or not?
Well, we got to finish. Let's finish answering the questions first.
Yeah, I'm just asking for clarification.
Well, I gotta run the sticks. I gotta run the sticks, so I can't do both at the same time.
Okay.
Should I start Waller or Parkinson this week? Aldi, I know this is the biggest question on the slate right now.
To me, it's no doubt it's Waller.
This is the biggest question on the slate right now. And before we go backwards into the questions, I kind of just want to go through this with you because a lot of people are going to be on the Colby Parkinson side. A lot of people are going to be on the Waller side. Here's what needs to be said. Colby Parkinson is the same from a volume perspective. Okay. You are going to see, as long as Higbee is not playing, you are going to see 4 to 6 targets for Colby Parkinson. You are going to see 30 to 80 yards from Colby Parkinson. The bonus points, where you're looking to get those bonus points from, is in those touchdowns. When you look at a guy like Darren Waller was at points in time this season splitting with Greg Dulcich, etc. Darren Waller, the last 3 weeks, we have 3 targets, 8 targets. Prior to the injury that he had, we look at 3 targets, 5 targets. Again, Quinn Ewers is different. And so when we think about that projectable outcome for what is Quinn Ewers going to look for, a rookie in his first NFL start outside of the preseason, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to throw to the veterans. They're going to get Devin Achane involved, okay? And what's the bonus here for Waller is that the matchup is better for Waller. Now, when you look at this, and this is, for any of the Waller-Parkinson dilemma and debates, right? And this always has a chance to change based upon different ways of looking at the stats, right? But when you look at over the last 4 games and you look at Seattle, okay? Seattle has offered around 8 total targets to tight ends. And we went over those tight ends yesterday. If Colby Parkinson is getting half of those targets and the other tight ends are getting the remaining half, you're looking at 4 targets. And do you think that Colby Parkinson can be so efficient with 4 targets and getting 2 touchdowns again? I project Colby Parkinson to somewhere be around 7-8 as a floor. And if he gets the touchdown, you get to 12. But I also project the same way for Waller. But I do think that there could be an opportunity more so for Waller to get involved, knowing that, it's a better matchup and that Quinn Ewers does have a history to throw tight ends. I think Waller's still a better play. We spent a little bit longer there, but that's just because this is a question that's going around and it's on every single,
Well, Bob, I wanted you to do it because I addressed it earlier in the show. So I wanted you to get a chance. So here's what we answered yesterday for you, Bob.
Ace, it's Brissett, hands down, no questions asked. You have a quarterback that is able to have over 30 passing attempts in a matchup that will take advantage of that number to a pretty high degree. You could see Jacoby Brissett go for 36 or 40 pass attempts in this game, depending upon how the game script goes. You could then project forward that he's going to have mostly at minimum 2 touchdowns. Now, you can also project similarly for Joe Burrow. You could project that Joe Burrow is somehow going to get 250 and
I think those are 2 good quarterbacks for the week. I think it's a good, legit question.
What I will say, though, is that when I look at the generality of the week, right, and we see in week 17 here, we see that the Bengals are
at Miami.
The Bengals are at Miami, and we have Arizona at Atlanta, right? Is that when I look at that Miami game, do you see fight in Miami?
Nope.
Because
I see Chase going nuts.
Because
I'm on Burrow.
Taylor is also fighting for his job. The coach of Cincinnati is also fighting to keep his job too. Mm-hmm. So
he has it though, because Cincinnati will never pay for 2 coaches.
But also when you look at Chase Brown is a better running back than Michael Carter right now. And when I look at that and I look at the potential opportunities there, there's a narrative script that I could write that the game in Atlanta and Arizona is going to be way more back and forth than the game Cincinnati and Miami. I do think that Cincinnati is going to score 28 points, and I do think that Arizona has a chance to get like 24 somewhere in there. But I think it is more likely that Chase Brown gets a touchdown and takes away from Joe Burrow than offering more to Joe Burrow this week. So while I said hands down Brissett's my guy this week, there are many, many multiple reasons why Burrow can be your guy too. I do not project them to be very far apart from one another at the end of the day. But again, I think that looking at the matchups, right? Brissett projected to be at around like 17, ceiling around 30. and you have Joe Burrow at 17, ceiling around 32. So just all depends upon which matchup you want to take advantage of more. And I would lean a little bit more into that Atlanta matchup because Bijan can make things very, very competitive. And I think that if Cincinnati keys in on Achane, that is not going to be very competitive in Miami.
That's fair too. But Miami can fun. Hey guys, just to let you guys know, always, of course, like and subscribe. I love when you do that. At 4:24 Eastern is when I'm going to click draft team. And I am doing the DraftKings 50K 5 max entry or 5 entry max on the DraftKings. Just to let you guys know, that will be.
And we're also going to go back and hit all the questions that we didn't hit. Where we took all the live.
We're doing both at the same time. We're doing double duty, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Starting Nico and Olave as my 2 wide receivers. I love that for you. Who would you start the flex? Devonta Smith, McLaurin, Gainwell, Debo, Jalen Warren, or Quorum? It's Gainwell for me. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, Trone, is that McLaurin can get locked down by Quinion Mitchell. It's happened multiple times before. Jalen Warren, the matchup isn't great for Jalen Warren. And you'll say, well, Bob, why Gainwell then? The thing about Gainwell that we like and that living in Pittsburgh that we have seen from him is that he has not gone under 7 total receptions or 7 total targets in the last 2-3 weeks.
He, for some reason, is the most important offensive steal.
So when I see a player that has the upside of a Wan'Dale Robinson wide receiver and the floor of a Jalen Warren style running back, I see a player that's projecting to be around 16 points. And that's based upon total opportunities in that matchup. Now, the matchup by no means is great for the Steelers versus Detroit. As I said last time, Detroit doesn't offer a lot of touchdowns to running backs. But the thing here is that this game could get out of hand very fast for the Steelers. And if the Steelers want to play comeback, Gainwell's going to be on the field more than Warren. And I think that Gainwell overall is probably going to project a little bit higher. Having a ceiling somewhere around 20, projecting a little bit higher than Jalen Warren. And again, at Buffalo, he had 3 targets. But if you take and you discount that Buffalo game, right, you have 8 targets against Cincinnati, 6 targets against Chicago, 3 targets against Buffalo, 7 targets against Baltimore, and 7 targets against Miami. Like, that's all wide receiver numbers. And because their wide receiving room is terrible and they're going to need to catch up, they're going to use Gainwell. I don't have a problem with Devonta Smith either because Washington's secondary is very trash. So if I wanted to start Devonta Smith, I don't have a problem with it. I see an outcome where Devonta Smith has a much lower floor than Gainwell has. And so if you are hoping that Devonta Smith catches 2 touchdowns, I don't see that happening. But I think that Devonta Smith could get – but the thing about this is, Joe, and I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but again, Gainwell is one of those linchpins this week, is that Gainwell's receiving hits Devonta Smith's floor. Plus, you get the upside of the running back, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's why Gainwell is the guy for me over these other players. Now, Trone, you're asking here about Bo Nix versus Dart. It's Bo Nix for me, and 2 reasons why. As I said yesterday, if you didn't watch yesterday, you could go back and watch yesterday's show, is that Bo Nix is going to be in a matchup that is, while it's not the best on the slate for a quarterback, it is going to be what I project to be a very hyper-competitive matchup. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars that are hot right now. They're red hot. And you have the Denver Broncos who need to prove that they deserve that number 1 seed, right? And so you have a quarterback that's being let loose at a very high rate, throwing the ball all over the place. Now, Bo Nix over the last several weeks, last week was his big coming out in the touchdown department. Prior to that, he was not scoring a lot of touchdowns through the air. And that was the one thing that was a big ding against Bo Nix when we were talking about it a couple weeks ago. Now, Jacksonville as a defense over the last 4 weeks, when we look at matchup-wise and we look at pass attempts-wise, Jacksonville and Denver have allowed the most pass attempts to quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. And they have offered, at least Jacksonville has offered less yardage, but a very similar completion percentage. Less passing touchdowns, but again, Bo Nix can do it with his legs as well. So you're kind of banking on that upside. The other thing is that Dart is arguably one of the worst matchups on the slate for a quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings have not allowed a quarterback to be successful from a fantasy points per game department in the last 4 weeks. Like I said, you got to hurt Jane Daniels, et cetera, et cetera. But 24 total pass attempts, 169 yards, and 6 fantasy points on average over the last 4 games to quarterbacks the Minnesota Vikings have been letting up. So there's reason to believe that if you are, even with Greenard out, there's reason to believe that if teams are gunning for Jackson Dart and he heads to the medical tent again, that you may get a 23, you may get an 8 from Jackson Dart this week based upon the matchup. So for me, it's Bo Nix, and I don't even need to consider any other statistic other than the fact that matchup dictates that there should be a lot of pass attempts to go around. Whether Bo Nix capitalizes on that or not, whether he just goes for 300 yards, 250 yards and a touchdown, that would be a big problem. But the matchup is there that if he's going to throw the ball a lot, he's going to have opportunities to be successful. Jackson Dart will not have as many opportunities, I don't believe, and has a chance to get knocked out of that game.
And that's fair. And guys, just so you know, we're waiting for the current lobby to fill up. We are looking for 2 more players. We are on the 50K 5-entry max playoff best ball on DraftKings.
So, Trone, would I drop Debo for Emmanuel Wilson? I'd be comfortable doing that. I was looking at stats today. The position for Debo in this matchup against Philadelphia is very, very poor. And there should not be as many opportunities. And there's a chance that there's not going to be as many opportunities for him. What I would do if I were you, and I was getting a little bit trigger happy, right, is Friday the opportunity to put a guy on waivers. Okay. So if I drop a guy on a Friday, you can't pick him up on a Saturday. He has to clear the waivers in order to do that. So for me, I think it's reasonable to think that if you drop Debo closer to kickoff, then he can't be used against you. But I'm not that nervous that he would be used against you. I don't think anybody would pick him up in that matchup. Would you rather start Hampton or Jennings this week? I think I'd rather start Jennings this week. Joe will tell you many reasons why Omarion Hampton is his guy this week. Dallas's defense, though, for me, has been playing exceptionally better in the run department over the last several weeks, better than they had been in the past. And I think the matchup dictates that they're probably going to have to throw the ball with Justin Herbert a little bit more because their offensive line has been dinged up a little bit more. Taking all that into consideration, right? Then we look at Jennings from a wide receiver perspective, and we ask ourselves, is Jennings' opportunities going to be enough? Well, we look at Indianapolis. They've been offering over the last 4 weeks 43 fantasy points per game to the total wide receiver room, with Ricky Pearsall potentially dinged up. And we're looking at about 22 total targets in that game. With Pearsall dinged up, we see Juwan Jennings had 5 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 9 targets, 5 targets over the last 5 to 6 games. So when I look at that and I say, are the opportunities going to be there for Hampton to be successful? Absolutely. But I am not sure from the capacity of the touchdown department where those touchdowns are going to come from for the Chargers. The Chargers are projecting to get around, let's see what their implied point total is here. The implied point total is around 23. And for the 49ers, the implied point total is around 26. So I'll take that implied point total plus the better matchup to move myself into Jennings. I don't have a problem starting Omarion Hampton, honestly, to tell you the truth, but I favor him a little bit more, a little bit less than Jennings, if I'm being honest.
And guys, I'm here in the 4 spot, and Bob, McCaffrey or Cook, that's where I'm at right now.
That's a you choice right there.
That's a Cook answer, baby.
I'll tell you about my opinion in a little bit. I'm not sure we saw the question. If you put your question in before the show went on air, we have not answered those questions yet, so we are going to answer those. Yours looks like it came a little bit more.
We have not answered that one yet, Bob. Fire up.
So we will answer it right now for you, one dear. So don't worry about it. So
it means you're here. Yeah, you re-asked it. Means you're here.
One flex out of Judkins, Evans, Swift, or Sutton. So this is how I would order it, and this is just being honest, okay? Evans and Sutton are going to give you money opportunities, okay? And what do I mean by that? They're going to give you opportunities to score touchdowns, okay? Now, their targets are high. The question is, what target pool do you want to lock yourself into this week, right? So when we look at the team defense, and again, we did this yesterday, approaching it from a quarterback perspective first, and looking at how many potential pass completions there are. Well, the first thing to note is that Sutton, we have Jacksonville with averaging 25, around 26 total completions allowed per game. That favors Sutton, where he has 8 to 10 targets a game. So I like that. I like that for Sutton. Then you go down to Carolina. Carolina has been allowing around 21 completions per game to quarterbacks. Okay. And so where is most of that production coming from a target perspective? Well, the wide receivers are getting a 16 to 17 of those 21, or 11 of those 21 completions going their way. So if you can see Mike Evans rolling into about 8 of those, he's absolutely a great play. But when you look at Sutton and Jacksonville's allowing around 15 total receptions per game to wide receivers. So when you look at where the total number of completions per game allowed, plus the total number of receiving opportunities allowed, I think you have to roll into Sutton when you look at that from that perspective over a guy like Evans. But Evans was red hot coming back from an injury last week, and that was unlimited snap count. So you can only imagine what he does potentially on a high snap count. And that's why, for that reason, those two guys are head and shoulders above Judkins and Swift for me. Regardless of how I think Judkins will perform this week, or how I think Swift will perform this week, which I don't think Judkins will perform well. And quite frankly, to tell you the truth, when we look at Buffalo, right, is that Buffalo does give up points to running backs. On average, over the last couple of games, 26 points to running backs, right? But 19 total rushing attempts. And do we see that Judkins has the opportunity for a touchdown this week? It's possible against Buffalo, but I feel like the opportunities for Sutton and Evans will be much better. And then when we go down here to Swift, for example, Swift, there's 23 total opportunities that might come up in that game. When I see 23 opportunities and I see a split 50-50, I see him getting potentially the same amount of work as a Sutton or as an Evans, and not even in that receiving department. So I tend to lean a little bit more on Sutton and Evans. I know Joe likes Evans a little bit more than Sutton this week.
I do. I definitely do.
I don't think that Judkins and Swift are going to would be in my flex in this conversation, but I would find a way to get both Evans and Sutton into my lineups if possible. Coming down here then, Wandir, to the Nix or Caleb discussion. There's reason to believe. I already spoke a little bit about Nix, so you can go back and listen to what I've said about Nix's opportunities in that game. One of the things about Caleb Williams that is just very interesting to me is that I looked up a stat in a chart today to say that he has not been he's been efficient, been inaccurate. And we know that about Caleb Williams. And when we think about this, that both teams are going to be fighting for a playoff spot still in this matchup. So Caleb Williams is going to want to perform well, but that doesn't mean that he has to get all of these touchdowns himself. So when we look at it and we look at the total number of opportunities, right, is over the last several weeks, we see 27 pass attempts, 31 pass attempts. Against Green Bay, last time they offered around 27 pass attempts to Caleb Williams. On average, they're offering around 25 total pass attempts. So I don't see that improving at all. But what I do think is that Caleb Williams does hit that 2 touchdown mark. So you can easily see a Caleb Williams game of 220 and 2 touchdowns. So if you think that Caleb Williams gets that 3rd touchdown and that Bo Nix does not, then you start Caleb Williams. But I think Bo Nix can get to the 3rd touchdown and has that little bit of rushing upside. So I'm on Bo Nix, and I think Joe is on them too. Yeah. Defense this week, Chiefs, Saints, or Bills. Wandir, we did talk about this yesterday in depth. You can go back and watch that show, but we will answer this question again. There is reason to believe that all of these defenses have their pluses and minuses this week. Buffalo isn't a very good defense in general, but Cleveland is not a very good offense. Cleveland's best weapon is what Buffalo plays well against. So there's reason to believe that they will be able to stop Shedeur Sanders. And for that reason, we are on Buffalo this week. But we also do like the Saints because New York seems to be in a jam. But that's really dependent on if Brady Cook starts or not. I'm on the Bills, then the Saints, then the Chiefs. And I think Joe is very similar in that regard.
I mean, Bills for sure this week. There's no doubt about it.
10-team, 3 wide receiver league. Quarterbacks Purdy, wide receivers are St. Brown, Pickens, Sutton, Wandale, Chamari Dyke for the return yards. The running backs are Jacobs, Wilson, Cook, Tracy, and Sharps. Parkinson and Waller is the tight end pool. Chamari is my wide receiver 6 in my league, but I'm worried about starting him in KC. Should I go Sutton, wide receiver 3, and Tracy in my flex? Absolutely, Jonathan. Tracy's in a smash spot this week.
Yes, he is.
When we look at the best matchups on the slate for running back, in my perspective, it is the Saints running backs. It is the Houston running backs again. And then you fill it out. Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Buffalo, Philly. Cleveland's up there too, like I said, from a fantasy, from that perspective. But the one thing that I think that puts Tracy above a guy like Chamari Dyke is that when we look at where the opportunities are going to come from for Tyrone Tracy, while Minnesota has not been bad at stopping running backs through the air, they have been allowing 26 rushing attempts per game. And even if you split those up with Devin Singletary, I think that Tracy will dominate those carries. Now, the one thing about Tracy that did hit in Tracy's favor last week, that didn't hit with his favor the week before, is the fact that he got the touchdowns. He is not their goal line guy. So if they're going to make it to the goal line, it's going to Devin Singletary. However, it's not likely that they get that close. So Tracy does have some really good opportunities. I go with Sutton and Tracy over Chamari Dyke. Riz, yeah, we got you. What we said earlier, Rumpel, was that we were going to clear through all the live questions first, and then go back and look at all of the deep dives and quick hitters that came in before.
Yeah, but Rumpel's got some in there. Hit his now, since you know he's here.
Yeah, so Rumpel, I got you on that. So when I look here, looking, coming down here, Joe, I don't see it. So yeah, Rumpel, put them in the chat. I'm not quite seeing them here. The first question I have is from Steve at 12:58.
Yep, so that's the first one I got too. So
I'm not seeing it. So definitely put it in the chat because I don't see it. So we got you. Just put it in the chat. I currently have the Vikings defense who plays the Giants. Would you drop for the Titans versus the Chiefs? No Mahomes, possibly Rice. Bengals versus Dolphins. Ewing start. I think I'd keep the Vikings. And the reason I keep the Vikings is that the Vikings have had a DFS performance that has been worth starting within the last several games. So when we take a look, and again, I know the DFS and all this is very different. But when we look at the Vikings as a defense, right? When they played Washington, they had 18 points. Okay. When they played Seattle, they had 9 points. So they are able to generate some sacks. When they played Cincinnati the last time, they did get 2 touchdowns. And that was in week 3. So no Jonathan Greenard is a little bit worrisome from a pressure standpoint, but I do think that the Vikings defense is still a good play. If I wanted to pivot off the Vikings defense this week and go with the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't have a problem with that against a guy like Quinn Ewers. The last time the Bengals scored above 10 fantasy points was against Baltimore, where they had 2 sacks, an interception, and 3 fumbles. And when they had back against New England, where they had a touchdown, a sack, and an interception. I don't necessarily think that they're going to be able to generate too much pressure, but Quinn Ewers is a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. So I do not have a problem pivoting from the Vikings defense into the Bengals defense. Juan, Stroud, Brissett, or Lawrence? The projections say that Lawrence is a better play on the slate than Jacoby Brissett. However, taking that into mind, I understand too, like I said earlier, that the matchup also states that Trevor Lawrence is going to have plenty of opportunities to be successful in this matchup. Like I said about Denver, Both of these defenses allow a lot of pass attempts, a lot of pass completions. Denver offers even a number of passing touchdowns. But when I look at Jacoby Brissett as well, I see very similar statistics. So for me, where this falls in at when I'm making a decision between, because Stroud's out of the discussion in this debate, is that when I look at this, do I take Jacoby Brissett, who has been averaging, 38 pass attempts a game? Or do I take Trevor Lawrence, who has 30, 28, 25, 27, 21 over the last several games, and he has pinged games that are much lower than the game that he just had that output for. And he had a 51 yards rushing, but the last time he hit a rushing touchdown was 5 weeks ago. Okay, so he needs to do a lot. He needs to do a lot to be successful, and I think the opportunities will be there. But I think that Brissett's opportunities are just cemented there. I mean, I think he's locked and loaded for at least 2 touchdowns, possibly 3-4 touchdowns in this game against Atlanta. Atlanta's out of it. Arizona's out of it. Show what you got. And that's the thing. Lawrence still fighting for those playoff spots. I get it. But there's a chance that they could run the ball a little bit better with ETN. And I just don't see that from the Cardinals at all.
So Bob, now that you're in between questions, let's go through this draft that just happened here. I only really missed one player in the whole draft that I wanted. I got to tell you, I love this thing. So here's the outcome. When I did this, there's a 5-entry max. So because of that, you're not going to get as many people swinging for the fences on players who might not make the playoffs. And the 2 teams I got to fall in love with was Indy and Detroit. So if Indy and Detroit make the playoffs, this team is stacked.
Well, Indy's chances are very low, so I'm not like
more low. But if you can get
willing to take, I'm willing to take a chance. Willing to take a chance. But let's go through that team when the show
wraps up.
We can rack up another one, but we'll take a look. Ace, Flex 2, Woody, Judkins, Kincaid, Dobbs, Devonta Smith. So in reference to this question, Ace, I feel like Woody is definitely a play for me. And then when I look at the other side of that, it comes down to Judkins or Devonta Smith. And I like Devonta Smith this week. I truly do like Devonta Smith this week. I think that the opportunities to be successful will be there for Devonta Smith this week. When we look at the opportunities that the Washington Commanders are given, they're not teams are not completing a lot of passes against them because you can run the ball against them. And that's kind of the one ding that Devonta Smith has this week. The other ding is that if Dallas Goedert goes off, there's a good chance that Devonta Smith will not have a good game. So for those reasons, there's a reason to believe that for you, Ace, Judkins would be the better play over Devonta Smith, going with the volume rather than just that upside. But again, Judkins is a scary play because if that game gets away from them,
I can't be on Judkins.
That's what I said. I mean, I'm not on Kincaid. I'm not on Dobbs out of this grouping of players. So for me, it comes down to Judkins and Devonta Smith. If you want to roll the dice with Devonta Smith and hoping that his opportunities will be there, I think that that's very reasonable.
I think that's the answer.
I just know that Judkins is most likely going to see the ball 13 to 14 times. What he does with that could be 30 yards, could be 40 yards, could be 100 yards.
2 yards of carry again, and that's been the problem with Judkins overall.
But I know Devonta Smith isn't going to see the ball 13 times. So
all right, Bob, so let's flip back up to the current questions. Well, you're already there. Boom, you're on top of it.
One, on the second round, who for my wide receiver 1, 2, 3 in the flex spot? Evans, Adams, Addison, Debo, Myers, Adonai Mitchell. For your 3 wide receivers, it's Evans, Addison, Jacoby Myers for me.
Yep. Even with that, him being marked as questionable, that's not concerning me. I'm still on Evans.
Devontae Adams is not going to play tomorrow night. And if he does play tomorrow night, I would start him over Addison. Okay. I just don't think he plays tomorrow night based off of everything that we know. And then I start the 3 running backs. So I start JT, Jacobs, in my running back 1, running back 2. Now there's a chance that Jacobs is dinged up too and might not play. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. And then Trevion Henderson obviously is in my flex spot.
Yep, that's right.
And I have no problem with that
Dude,
lineup
that's
at
a
all.
strong lineup. That's a championship
Tight end
lineup right there, Juan.
Tight end wise, I'm on Kittle. Again, like we talked about yesterday, Juan, I think the 3 people that you should target in your league, I'm keeping an eye. Like I said, Woody Marks is a start if he's healthy, guys. If he's not healthy, he's not a start. But I would keep my eye on Jawar Jordan, Emmanuel Wilson, and Deshaun Vele. I'm not on Tutu Atwell. I was on Tutu Atwell a couple weeks ago when an injury popped up, and Tutu Atwell got me a big 0. And
yeah, Atwell's not the dude. But Juan, the waiver guy I would want to figure out how to get on your roster is Wilson, just so you don't have to play against him. I mean, I would do that as self-preservation.
Yeah. It would be Wilson, Jawar Jordan, and Deshaun Vele for me. And honestly, Juan, I could see myself dropping Debo.
I would drop Debo for Wilson
to pick up any of those guys.
And guys, if you want to jump in the draft with myself here, it is the Best Ball 50K Huddle playoff tournament, 5 entry max, $5 buy-in. Very nice and easy one we're doing here on air.
And then for this
question, off air, by the way.
For this question, what'd you say?
So big money tends to happen off air, so there's no conflict of interest.
To this question, I think that any of those first 3 options are good options this week. I tend to favor the Saints against the Jets a little bit more because the rushing opportunities will be there, and I think the Saints can take advantage of that, even with Audric Estime. So I tend to lean the Saints for you. Saints, Vikings, then Cincy. I can find reasons, like I said earlier, about not wanting Vikings and not wanting Cincy, but I think it's the Saints for me. Are we sitting Waller and Waddle now? I'm thinking about sitting Waddle, Frizz, but I'm not sitting Waller. Waller can be absolutely successful in this game. Like I said, I think that he can project for 6 for 60, something like that. Maybe not a touchdown. Waddle is a little bit more interesting, though, especially because he's probably going to be shadowed by DJ Turner. Okay. And DJ Turner has been locking down guys.
Yeah, it's been weird.
So
let's correct that. He hasn't been locking down guys. He's just not as bad as every other corner that Cincinnati has.
But
I don't know if he's good.
But I'm not going to take a rookie in their first matchup like that. I ain't taking a rookie and then going up against a cornerback like that. So
no, I agree with you. He's going to check another Waller.
Waddle for me would probably be a sit this week. Rumpel, who to start at tight end this week? Colston Loveland is on my team right now. Waller and Parkinson are on waivers. If I pick up from waivers, who do I drop? The current team is Burrow, Chase Brown, Trevion Amon-Ra, Igbuka Myers, Eagles defense. The bench is JD5, Jordan Mason, Monty Shakir, Christian Watson, Viking defense. So these are the guys, and in the order in which I would drop them. If this is not a keeper league, if this is a keeper league, you keep Jaden Daniels. If it's not a keeper league, Jaden Daniels can go back to the waiver wire. The next person up is Christian Watson. I love Christian Watson as a player for the Packers, but with his health and him going down, I am hesitant right now on Wednesday to say that he's going to play this week. He says he'll be good for Saturday, but I'm not entirely sure. But honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't really see a problem dropping Colston Loveland to pick up a different tight end. Now, we all have our viewpoints about Colston Loveland and this Bears offense, and I'm not talking about Caleb Williams in general in this. What I'm talking about is just those opportunities. Colston Loveland is just hitting the average, just like Darren Waller, just like Colby Parkinson. So he's going to get probably somewhere in that 8-point market, okay? What really comes down to is that when you look at these matchups, which one of these tight ends has the pathway to more opportunities? Well, when we look at the Bears, if Burden is out and if Rome is out, there's a pathway for Colston Loveland to be very successful this week. And then you wouldn't want to start either of the other two. Okay. We're looking at Rome already being marked out. He's trending toward missing the 3rd game. Luther Burden is Q-tag right now. So I am not making this decision yet, Rumpel. I am waiting until that Q-tag potentially goes to an out. And if that Q tag goes to an out, Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet's opportunities go up. When we look at it in totality, right, from the perspective of the defenses versus this offense and versus tight ends in general, you're looking at the Green Bay Packers offering around 5 opportunities a game to tight ends, which is not high. So if Cole Kmet gets 3 and Colston Loveland gets 2, not great. But when you look at Darren Waller, you're looking at opportunities, 10 potential opportunities here for the Miami tight ends. So for me, I think it'd be prudent to go and see, again, you're going to know if Christian Watson's healthy to make this decision. Of course, you can't go after Kobe Parkinson, but there's enough people scared of Waller that he might stay there for a little bit longer than he actually should. The other thing to note, guys, with the Devonta Smith questions, is that Washington has been giving up 8 targets to tight ends. So if you wanted to play Devonta Smith, there is some inherent risk there because Washington plays tight end pretty bad. So it could be a Dallas Goedert game. So keep your head on a swivel for that. But for me, I would keep my eye on Colston Loveland with the Luther Burden injury. And if it's not a keeper league, I'd be dropping Jane Daniels. If it is a keeper league, I'd be dropping Christian Watson or Jordan Mason. Quite frankly, you also have the extra defense. You could drop the Minnesota Vikings too. So go with the defense first. If you don't want to keep them for next week, you're not going to use them over the Eagles this week. Drop the defense. If you want to, drop the defense now to pick up Waller and then go from there. Trone, Devin Neal's out. Is Estime worth an ad? Yes. I think Audric Estime or Evan Hall is worth an ad. We don't yet know which one of those guys is going to be the guy that they're going to rely on. But here's what I do know. Okay? This is what we do know, that the New York Jets allow 26 to 27 attempts per game to running backs. And at one of the highest yardage clips in the league. Okay? Looking at like 6th in the league. They also offer around 2 rushing touchdowns per game. Now, what I said last night was that there is reason to believe that Tyler Shook will take 7 of those opportunities. 7 of the total 27 or 28 opportunities that will be there on the table for these running backs. But if you give me a halfway decent running back against a terrible Jets defense that's giving up around 27 opportunities, yes, I absolutely think that one of these running backs is worth a start. But I think you got to flip a coin, and you got to listen to the media of which one projects to be the starter or is going to play the whole game. Right now, what that is looking like from just a stats perspective here is that when we look at Estime is projecting to get around 10 points with a ceiling of around 12. And Evan Hall is trending to be somewhere in less than that. So right now we are projecting that Estime will be the starter. So I think that Estime in a good matchup like that is definitely worth it. So yes, I'm adding Audric Estime. Kamara is out. So Kamara would absolutely be he's still not practicing. So if Kamara is out, you can't trust him. If he's in, then he would get a good nod. Do I start Michael Wilson or Ibuka if Marv plays full PPR? Here's the thing, Michael, is that Michael Wilson, you're going to see the stats. The stats are going to tell you that in the one full game that Michael Wilson played with Marv and Jacoby Brissett, that he was sitting there at 7 points. The worst game of his good 6-game run here, right? But he still had 6 total targets. He only connected on half of those. In every other game, he has connected in over half of his targets. Last week, he had 5 for 10 against a really tough Houston defense. So when I look at this and I say, Ibuka has been getting around 8 targets a game and performing fairly similarly in the completion percentage department there with catching about half of the balls. So if I'm projecting that Jacoby Brissett is going to throw it 36 times and that probably 10 to 12 of those will go to Trey McBride. 8 to 10 of those will probably go to Marvin Harrison. So there's still 8 to 10 targets for Michael Wilson to have. So I am not benching Michael Wilson, even if Marvin Harrison is playing. Okay. The matchup is too good on paper. And I think that potentially he has a better matchup if Marvin Harrison is in, because he doesn't get the better cornerback. And he's a better player than Marvin Harrison right now. Do I start Myers or Michael Carter? I'm starting Jacoby Myers. Everything that I said to you about rushing attacks, running games, etc., is still true for a guy like Michael Carter. I like Michael Carter, guys. You're not going to get me to not like a dog like Michael Carter, who continues to just be there for this team, a team that is floundering, right? And he's doing everything that he can in his capacity, right? But when I look at it, and I understand that Bam Knight is not going to play this game.
No, he's not.
And we're looking at Amari DiMercato. But when we look at the Cardinals in general, so when we look at a guy like Bam Knight, and we see last week he had one carry, but we go to the best game. So we're going to go to the best game with Tampa. He had 11 carries against Tampa. In that game, Carter also had 5 carries in that game. And let's see if DiMercato played in that game. And when we look at DiMercato in that game, we're seeing – I might have to sneeze again, guys. Sorry about that.
Just let it out, Bob. Don't try to hold it in. That's how you get sick. Let it flow.
So DiMercato wasn't in that game. So we're looking at, on average, around like 16 rushing attempts, maybe 17 rushing attempts. Jacoby Brissett's not going to take the ball out of Jacoby Brissett's hands if Jacoby Brissett doesn't have to.
You said Jacoby Brissett again.
Jacoby Brissett. So when we look at this, everybody out there is going to tell you to pick up Michael Carter. I'm not one of those people. I don't think that the opportunities are going to be plentiful for Michael Carter this week. Again, when we go and look at the stat sheet, Atlanta has allowed 18 total rushing attempts on average over the last 4 weeks. And if you're telling me that the average that the Cardinals get is around 16 to 18, they're not even going to supersede that total, and they don't have the capacity to do that. So I see a very low output for a guy like Michael Carter this week, probably 60 yards, 6 points, something like that. Myers can outpace that alone with receptions. So I think that's why I lean Myers. Cup, Debo, Keenan in PPR. I'm going Cup currently. I think you got to go Cup family in PPR. I don't really trust Keenan, and I don't really trust Debo. I would hope that you have a better option, though. I'm not a huge fan of any of those plays this week, especially with the weird kind of emergence of Shaheed last week. When we look at Cooper Kupp's getting 7 targets. Prior to that, 3 targets, 4 targets, 6 targets. I think that there could potentially be some better options on your waiver wire. So just shoot us a message to see what those opportunities would be. Trone, I gave you all the reasons to like Audric Estime. There are so many reasons to like Audric Estime, but I think I'm going to stick with it with Kenny Gainwell here. I think that Ken Gainwell is a better play overall, just from the perspective of the reception market. Now, you have to understand this stat too, is that the Lions have been playing running backs really, really well, okay? And the Lions have not offered a lot of receptions to running backs over the last several weeks. But the Lions are pretty good at generating pressure. And the Steelers are not very good at stopping pressure. And so when that happens, Aaron Rodgers is going to get happy feet, and he's going to throw the ball to Kenny Gainwell. There is reason to believe that Ken Gainwell will have 6 receptions for 40 yards in this game and also have 30 to 60 yards on the ground, okay? He may not get that touchdown. I think that Estime probably gets, like I said, around 15 to 16 opportunities, possibly a little bit more if he looks good in practice this week. The Gainwell has already looked good. There's no rolling the dice that you have to do on Kenny Gainwell. Okay. He is a guy that's very useful and utilitarian for the Steelers. There's a chance that Warren will pop up and have a good game. Sure. But I think that Kenny Gainwell has less risk than Audric Estime this week. So I'm on Gainwell. We buy non-PPR. If no Rice and he gives up this week, who should I pivot into? I don't think he'll give up. But if I'm playing a wide receiver,
I mean, there's a very big difference there.
If I'm playing two wide receivers from your team, we buy here. I like T and I like Rice. Okay. I do think that T has a good potential to score a touchdown this week. If Rice is not playing, I would go and probably pick up BTJ off waivers, and I would drop McLaurin. Honestly, I'd do that right now. I would drop McLaurin right now, and I'd pick up BTJ right now. And I know why BTJ is on the waivers, because he's not scoring touchdowns, but I do think it's reasonable to believe that he does get a touchdown this week. So for me, it's T and Rice. If you don't want to pick up BTJ, you don't trust them, then I think you can lean a little bit into Igbuka in a decent matchup. Jettis, I can't trust right now. And again, guys, asked a question before we went on air. We are going through all the questions that are live first today. I'm trying something just a little bit different, and we'll get back to those questions. So don't worry about it. We got you.
We got you. That's right.
Tua for Geno and Dowdle in Dynasty 2 weeks ago. I'm more happy now. The fact, family, that you were able to trade him for Dowdle is amazing. Dowdle has gotten so many opportunities this year to be successful. And it actually looks like he's a pretty good running back, right? And while Geno is Geno, Dowdle is going to be the piece that you kind of want there. Jesse, this is deep dive. We'll hit that in there now. Which wide receiver would you start between Burton, Vele, Smith, and London? So if London is playing, London's the guy that I really, 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 really desperately want to start. We know that with Kirk Cousins can just queue up Drake London for 15 targets. And that's always within the realm of possibilities for Atlanta. Now, I'm really hesitant to start Drake London just because I'm just not sure what that health will roll out. And again, it's Monday, so we want to keep our eyes, or it's Wednesday, so we want to keep our eyes peeled on what's going on there for Drake London. But when we look, like I said, when we look at Arizona from that same perspective that we were talking about, you're seeing around 9 total receptions to wide receivers over the last 4 games. But from a quarterback perspective, it's one of the better matchups for quarterbacks on the slate. He is going to probably get around 27, 28 total pass attempts. The completion percentage might not be great, but also he's probably going to throw for around 2 to 3 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins is in this game. So Drake London is absolutely a guy that I really, 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 really want. Now, I'm also considering Luther Burden, but Luther Burden with the Q tag, I can't trust. There's other players that don't have Q tags. Okay. Then when we look at it, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but Deshaun Vele is absolutely one of those guys that I think you can queue up this week. When we look at Vele from just the perspective of, is he going to be a good option this week? Sure. The matchup dictates that he should be pretty good. However, yesterday he got hurt and now he's out. So you can't, that kind of sucks, right? For anybody that looked at Vele 37 minutes ago, as we were talking about the last question, I just looked it up. Deshaun Vele ruled out against the Jets. So no Vele. So I think by injury logic, we've got to go with either Smith or London. And I gave you all the stats about the Commanders and how they're good against, or how they're not as good against tight ends. And you can easily see yourself another Dallas Goedert really good game. So for me, it's Smith or London. Vele is out, unfortunately, for everybody that watched the show yesterday. Vele dinged up his shoulder after we went on.
Yeah.
Out. So now you have London, Smith, Burden. I think you got to go London, assuming he's healthy. If he's not, you go Smith because he's the only healthy one out of the bunch. Do I drop Debo for Estime now? I would. But also, Trone, I don't know how many people believe in Estime.
I don't think you should.
It's very likely that you can drop Debo right before the game and pick up Estime.
I think that's true too.
So, like, I don't think you need to do it right now. If you wanted to do it right now, sure, you could do it right now. Rumpel, not a keeper, just regular redraft. Sounds like I dropped JD5, pick up Waller, and then I can monitor the Bears wide receivers and plug Colston if both wide receivers are out. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a really good way of approaching it. Let's get it. Half PPR struggling. Need a quarterback, 2 running backs, 1 flex, and 1 defense. So just so everybody knows, Vele's off the table, guys. We just learned that he was injured as we were going in, checking on all the injury reports. He's out, not playing this week. When I look at this and I see the running backs, you're absolutely starting Gibbs and Henderson. Okay, Gibbs and Henderson. Henderson's matchup isn't the best on the slate. It's not better than Mark's, but Gibbs's matchup isn't tremendous. Henderson is going to get opportunities. I think Gibbs and Henderson are your 2 running backs for sure. Then I look at the rest of these guys and I see your flexes. So I look at Kyron and Woody. We see BTJ, Myers, MHJ, Adonai Mitchell, Troy Franklin, Coker, and then we've got the quarterbacks Stafford and Purdy. I'm on Brock Purdy out of the 2 quarterbacks. I do love Matt Stafford a lot. I think he can be very successful. But Thursday nights for older quarterbacks who, need some time to rest, I'm not really like in on that right now. So unless I didn't have a better option. So like I'd be on Purdy there at the quarterback position. Now, if I had to choose a flex, like I'm probably starting both in my wide receiver position. I'm probably starting both of the Jacksonville wide receivers. I know it's really weird to say, but I'm probably starting both of them. If I didn't feel like I wanted to start BTJ, I would start Myers and Franklin. Franklin's probably going to get a lot of opportunities if Pat Bryant is out again this week. And again, if MHJ is playing, and again, I don't know right now on Wednesday if he is or not, but there are going to be targets for him to capitalize on. And Adonai Mitchell's interesting, but I think for the purposes of this discussion that he's out of the discussion. So if I noticed you didn't say wide receivers in there. You're nervous about this Stafford matchup, and I think that it's rightfully so to be nervous of that. Also with MHJ coming back, unsure of how to start him, was liking Mitchell or Coker alongside with Myers. So if I'm looking at wide receivers, I don't have a problem with starting Coker, but I do like Troy Franklin a little bit better this week if Pat Bryant is out. The opportunities will be there. However, with that being stated, I do still think that Kyron and Marks in the flex position may be a better option than, Adonai or Franklin or Coker. So if you could clarify, let's get it to tell us who you're actually starting so far. And then I can give you, and Joe and I can give you a better answer to that question. Just let us know who you're actually starting in there. Which is better, Marv or Wilson? I think both are equal to a degree. When we look at total amount of opportunities, there will be opportunities there in that game to be successful for these 2 players. Which player has proven that they can capitalize on their opportunities more? Well, it's Michael Wilson.
No, Wilson just did it recently. Marv did it earlier in the year without Call of Duty playing. And that was one of the things I really pointed out early. Marv did really good before he got hurt. So
like I said, both are
Marv's a more talented player.
I think both are equal from a statistical standpoint when you get a quarterback that's going to probably throw the ball 37 times.
So I think yardage wise, I agree with you. I think Marv's getting the touchdown.
Fair. But I still like Wilson better. He's hotter right now, not injured.
Wilson's definitely hotter right now. I ain't fighting that at all. But it's because he's playing
Hurts over Knicks. I think so. I think, but here's the thing to worry about with Hurts. There's a very big potential that in a game that's not hyper competitive, that Hurts does nothing. So they do still want to win the game, but they can easily win the game by giving the ball to Saquon Barkley 25 times. So I do see a world where Jalen Hurts and Bo Nix probably come out at the same point. But here's the thing. Jalen Hurts is not going to throw the ball for over 220 yards in this game. So that's the thing to keep your eye on, is there's a very big chance that Bo Nix breaks the average of Jacksonville's pass defense in recent weeks. But there is a very low chance that Jalen Hurts hits that 225 mark. Like you look at it over the last several weeks, right, is that The Dallas game was his highest passing output as a passer, 289 yards. But where he gets it is the touchdowns is in the rushing department. You look at last week, 175 yards, 3 touchdowns, 39 yards rushing. The week before that, no touchdowns. That was the terrible game. And the week before that, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, 31 yards rushing, 1 fumble. So he's going to get the opportunities. But the question is, will his touchdown output mimic or mirror Bo Nix? And will his yardage output in totality between rushing and passing equal that of Bo Nix? And I can't say that his rushing and passing total will equal that of Bo Nix, but it's very likely that he could go for 100+ yards if they give him the opportunities to do that. So I am on Hurts because I think that he is a more interesting asset in a game. But like everything that I said, Bo Nix is a guy this week in a game that projects to be very back and forthy. So I would have no problem leaning Bo Nix over Jalen Hurts this week. Jesse, we'll take a look back at that. We'll take a look back at that. We buy 6-point passing touchdown. Dak, Shook, Rodgers, Stroud, McCarthy, or Bryce Young. So we talked a little bit about this yesterday, is that Rodgers has the best statistical yardage matchup on the slate for a quarterback. The Detroit Lions are offering a huge amount of yardage to quarterbacks, over 300 yards a game to quarterbacks. This is not the Aaron Rodgers of old, though. So the likelihood that he's able to eclipse 300 yards is not high. The other thing about the Detroit defense is that while they can generate pressure, they are giving up a good amount of touchdowns through the air to quarterbacks. So around 2 to 3 touchdowns per game. Now, this is also factoring the Jordan Love 4-touchdown game. So when I look at this and I say, out of these quarterbacks, it is very likely that you could write a narrative script where Aaron Rodgers would be a good play out of that grouping of players. Then you go to Tyler Shook in a matchup that should be beatable. The thing about Tyler Shook that you got to like in this matchup is the fact that the rushing yards should be there. Again, the Saints do not offer a lot of pass attempts because they offer a lot of rushing attempts. And it is very likely that Shook goes 7 for 60 on the ground and gets 22 pass attempts for 200 yards and a touchdown or 2. With Vele not being there, I do question Tyler Shook right now because I do not trust Mason Tipton. I do not trust the other wide receivers outside of Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson in that room. So Shook is a little bit more of a scarier play now that Vele is out.
He is.
Then you look at these other quarterbacks, Dak, Stroud, McCarthy, Bryce Young. They all project to be within that same kind of framework. 2 touchdowns, 200 yards, nothing really special about any of those matchups on paper. That's
pretty much the answer. And then that makes me go with Dak to put on a show because I think there's a very real chance.
But again, Dak has the worst matchup on the slate. So
he does, but he's also the Cowboys quarterback, and that's what
I'm not going Dak. I would lean a little bit into Rodgers, knowing it's a better matchup, but also he's old. So consider that with everything that I said about the stats.
All right, guys, we're going to have to pick this up because we're starting to get a little bit far behind our time limit of where we wanted to be on people. But
Waller, Jonathan, still Waller.
Big scare.
Walker or Monty this week, Joe? We haven't had a Ken Walker question. The audience called that out yesterday. We haven't had a Ken Walker question.
Yeah, but we talked yesterday about how Monty's so touchdown dependent, and the Steelers actually aren't allowing rushing touchdowns. I think Gibbs tears the Steelers apart. But Monty doesn't do much, so I kind of take Walker by default.
Yeah, it's Walker for us over Monty. There are stats to back that up. Who would you guys flex? Hampton? No. We buy starting Travion. I'm starting Travion. If Quinnen Williams doesn't play this week, you could absolutely – if Quinnen Williams is out this week, guys, there's a reason to believe that Omarion Hampton would be a good play in general.
I think that's regardless.
But again, you're
still going Henderson over him, though.
Yeah, Henderson's hot, and yeah, he can cool down, but he's much hotter and in getting lots of opportunities. All right, family, no better options. Cup revenge game coming up. Hope so. It's a chance. I mean, again, he could get between 4 to 8 targets.
He also can do nothing. He's done a lot of nothing. He's done a lot more nothing than something this year.
He might get 4 catches for 30 yards. He's a very low output kind of guy. Let's get it. Whoops or the Lions defense. Meant to put that up there with the Vikings and Broncos. Nah, I'm not considering starting the Lions defense at all. Not at all. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Some players are sometimes, but in general, not so much. Praylin, what's your take on Watson being back in practice, and would you rather start him over Reed? So, Praylin, what I see here, and I saw your questions a little bit earlier, so we could go up to those questions absolutely right now. When I see that Christian Watson's back in practice, I want to see at least 2 or 3 practices, because sometimes these practices are just walkthroughs, and a player can participate in a walkthrough but cannot participate in an actual practice. So what I'm looking at here is that I want to see some good performances in practice from Watson. If that's the case, then yes, I would start Watson over Reed. But Reed's matchup is kind of sneaky this week. The Bears are not great against the slot wide receivers, and if he gets the slot role projecting ahead, there's reason to believe that he should be pretty good there. If you could pick 2 wide receivers for my flexes this week, would it be Watson, Igbuka, Reed, Franklin, or Pierce? I'd be on Igbuka and Franklin out of that grouping.
That's a great answer.
Because of the opportunities, Praylin. You've heard me talk all about the opportunities for passing in that game with the Broncos. I would keep my eye on if Pat Bryant's playing, because if you wanted to pivot into one of the Green Bay wide receivers, you could pivot off of Franklin. You cannot trust Pierce right now with Phillip Rivers. He is not an asset that you can trust at this moment in time. So if you wanted to pivot off, you're playing Igbuka, and if you wanted to pivot off Franklin because Pat Bryant's playing or whatnot, you pivot into one of the Green Bay wide receivers, whoever's playing.
That's right.
What's my thoughts on Igbuka with Evans back? We shared these thoughts yesterday, but my thoughts
Evans getting downgraded questionable today is a little concerning, but I'm still not back to the Igbuka buzz.
Again, I'm not running for the hills here on if Mike Evans is going to not play this week. Again, he's coming back from an injury. He was pissed off at the end of that game. He's probably questionable because he's old and he doesn't want to practice, right?
Which is also fair.
So what I see is that he feels blessed. So when I hear that a player feels blessed, he's going to have a great game. But when I see Igbuka, again, I see still 8 opportunities for Igbuka a game. This passing attack is very likely to have those opportunities there, even with an unhealthy Baker Mayfield. So I do think that when you look at a floor for Igbuka, you have 6 targets, 3 catches, 40 yards, which isn't great, but it is a floor. Where I find a problem with Igbuka is where do I find the ceiling? And I don't see a ceiling with Igbuka. That's one of my problems right now. Is I love Igbuka, but I don't
see him as a prospect overall.
I don't see a ceiling right now from a fantasy perspective with Evans there. That's what I'm saying. So that's kind of where I'm at over there, Praylin, when we talk about that. When we look at your question here, we just revisited this up at the top. So we got you on that one. Again, with Evans back, like I said, again, just to repeat myself about Evans and Igbuka. Evans is such a force on the field, guys, that teams, because he's such a stable veteran, will roll coverages his direction. But with Igbuka being there as well, and with Godwin there, this team has not played like a normal team that has like 2 wide receivers and a pedestrian third wide receiver. All 3 of these wide receivers are excellent wide receivers. So you couple that in with a running back that's very explosive, and you have a team that's very difficult to defend from a defender standpoint. So it's not like you can do certain things and then Igbuka all of a sudden gets more coverage. They're gonna play them in the same ways, and that's why they're kind of like all averaging the same amount. Devonta Smith, Estime, or Watson in the flex.
So I'm Devonta all day on this one, Manny.
Yeah, Manny, I told you all the reasons why you could like Estime this week. And you can make that choice if you want to play him or not. And I gave you all the reasons why to like and to not like Devonta Smith this week. The wild card here is Christian Watson. If Christian Watson plays and is healthy, I think Christian Watson has the most touchdown upside out of all 3 of these players. So if I wanted touchdown upside and Watson's playing, I'm starting Watson. If Watson isn't playing and I'm looking for upside, I think Estime gets more targets, more carries than the total number of opportunities that Devonta Smith had. So I go with Estime, but it's a little bit of a risk. Actually, a very big risk. Trone, with Vele ruled out, Vele's off the table. I have great tight ends on my bench, but my wide receiver 2 spot is weak. So, family, when we go back up to that question there for you, where was it? I think, with Kupp, Yeah, Cup is the guy. Cup is the guy you start.
Yeah, he's the one you'd have to play out of that grouping. I do love how Caps for Life is committing to the all caps lifestyle, though.
I've only ever seen one message from you, Caps, that wasn't all caps. And I was quite shocked when I saw it. It was a couple weeks ago. I need to Breece Hall, DJ Moore, Fannin, or Schultz in the PPR. We've talked a little bit about Breece Hall. Breece Hall's matchup is good enough, guys. It's one of the better ones on the slate from a rushing attempts perspective. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at the total number of rush attempts that are possible in a game, with Brady Cook, he only had 12 opportunities and 23 rushing yards. There are going to be the attempts available to them to take advantage of, 27 to 28 attempts. So the attempts will be there. But my question is, will the offense be there? Brady Cook starting again. I don't know if you can really, truly trust Breece Hall. Now, do I trust him over Fannin or Schultz? Fannin or Schultz feels more stable, right? Is that Schultz is probably going to be in that.
Schultz feels like Schultz is the highest floor of that group probably, but I'm still going with DJ Moore without any of the other Chicago receivers.
Same. That's what I was going to say. I think that DJ Moore is a guy in this regard that he's
the broken toy you're going to have to play with.
But again, Green Bay is very good against some wide receivers here. They've seen DJ Moore a bunch of times. So that's something to keep your eye on. The last time they played Green Bay, DJ Moore had 3 targets for 1 reception and -4 yards. So that is something to think about. Again, if I'd be looking at Burton's injury, seeing if Burton's playing, because if he's not, I'm not really a huge fan of DJ Moore in this matchup. And I'd probably roll into Breece and Schultz because Schultz has a much safer floor. Whereas DJ Moore does have a little bit of a potential a higher ceiling. I just don't think that DJ Moore is as trustworthy as most people think this week. So Breece Hall and Schultz for me. But if Luther Burton is out, I think they got to use DJ Moore in different ways. I'm not excited about any of these 4 options, particularly this week, though.
That's very
Ricardo, PPR flex, Aaron Jones or Gainwell. It's Gainwell.
Mm-hmm.
It's Gainwell for me. Aaron Jones has the better matchup, guys. And Aaron Jones is a good play this week. The Minnesota Vikings are against the Giants. The Giants are giving up around 6 targets a game to running backs and around 22 total rushing attempts. They're splitting it fairly equally. He's getting around 12 to 14 attempts. The matchup is good, but like I said earlier about Gainwell, the opportunities will be there. And
the second one is Swift for me all day.
Swift's probably going to play a full game. I like Woody still. So I'd be on Woody over Swift. But if you wanted to start Swift, I still think you're going to get productive numbers out of Swift. Stafford in a bad matchup or Bryce Young in a good matchup. Family, you know who you're asking this question to. You're asking this question to Joe.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be – I'm never picking Bryce Young. I had to say happy family.
I could see a universe, family, where I would be wanting to start Bryce Young in a game where they want to play – where they're playing for the division and they have to win. That's a lot of pressure for Bryce Young. Bryce Young doesn't do good under pressure.
Table's winning that game easy.
I'd probably lean on Bryce Young, but there's reason to believe that that's a bad decision. But from bad decisions come championships sometimes, so consider that. Need 2 wide receivers too. Let's get it. All right, cool. So far, I have Gibbs and Kyron in for the 2 running backs. Henderson is the flex. Perfect. That's what I would do too. And both Jaguars in for wide receivers. Okay. The defense, I have the Vikings in so far and Stafford in a quarterback. Like I said, I think I would be on Purdy. And like I said about the Jacksonville wide receivers, the opportunity should be there. Is it prudent to start 2 wide receivers from the same team? Not really. But It did work out last week for the Broncos. It did work out last week for the Jaguars. And, hey, guess what? They're playing each other this week. So I think it's a little bit of serendipity that has caught on. But I like BTJ and Myers this week, and I'm starting Henderson in the flex with Gibbs and Kyron at my 2 running back positions, and then rolling with Purdy over Stafford in your discussion. Ricardo, Wilson is a lot better and puts way more effort in every play. Exactly. Marvin Harrison might be a good talent but he is not putting in the effort. I like Michael Wilson, man.
He's part of a team that's phoned it in.
Oh, I meant Joe picking Hurts over Knicks in the draft. Was that due to a likely first round buy? Yeah. And it's also
due to the fact I think Hurts will score more points than Knicks.
Also, I think the playoff best balls are really interesting. I did one earlier today where building out a team on one side.
And then, for the record, I definitely like the first team more than the second team.
Start Burrow versus Miami or McCarthy versus the Giants. I'm on Burrow versus Miami. Like I said earlier when we were talking about Burrow and Brissett, both of these quarterbacks, Burrow and Brissett, project for 2 to 3 touchdowns, and I think Burrow could reach that. The only thing that you have to question is that how much will Miami actually want to play? But with Minka Fitzpatrick not playing, Burrow can take advantage of it, and they're playing for Taylor's job. So, I mean, I think that's worthy enough. Would you start Pitts or Bowers, Jesse? I think both are worth a start this week. When we look at the stat sheets and we see total targets, opportunities, and whatnot, you're seeing a game for Bowers where you're looking at 8, almost 9 targets to tight ends that Houston has been giving up. Okay. That's one of the best ones on the slate. And when you look at Pitts, now Pitts had a generational game last week, but around 7 to 8 targets. Both of these players probably project Pitts and Bowers around 14 total points, with maybe a touchdown swinging one tight end above the other. When we look at it, around 14 total points from what we see. Their ceilings are very similar. So I think that you got to go with the matchup that potentially has you go with a team that potentially has more projected implied points. And I could see myself leaning into Kyle Pitts, but I could also see myself being very disappointed by Kyle Pitts this week. Just from the perspective that if Drake London is back, Kyle Pitts may take a backseater to Drake London. So I'd really keep my eye on that. I'd still probably start Bowers. But again, with the low projected total team total for the Raiders, there's not a whole lot of upside unless it comes through yardage and receptions for Bowers, and it absolutely could. Caps, I'm on Stroud over Stafford this week. I think that Stroud and Stafford project very similarly in that 2 touchdown, 250
This has been in the group that's been splitting hairs all week, Cap.
Yeah.
We and then, this one.
Like we said there, we already got you on that one. I'm on Brees and Schultz. Joe's on DJ Moore. And who was your other one?
Hall.
Okay.
I can't pick a tight end for flex. I just
start 3 between Hall, Monangai, Carter, and Jaden Higgins. Joe, thoughts?
Oh, so the one I'm benching, which is really what this question is Carter. Again, he did absolutely nothing once he became the main guy for majority of that game, and I ain't putting him in.
I mean, I also see a universe, Joe, where Monangai is not going to get as many good looks.
I see that universe too, but I'm not for putting Carter in again. Carter is dead to me territory. For someone who's this low and irrelevant, I don't get why he keeps getting asked about.
I'll say this, right? And this will be kind of like a final thought on Michael Carter. The projected point totals, the projected implying point totals do favor the Bears over the Cardinals. Yes, Monangai did not have a great game against the Packers the last time out, and that was really disappointing. We were really hoping for something better in that matchup. When you look at, like I said, the total implied or the total number of opportunities that are going to be split there are around 23. So if Monangai can do well with that, I think it's going to be the same number of carries that Carter has. So for me, it's column A, column B. Higgins is interesting. He had a quiet day last week, but if you're projecting that CJ Stroud is going to do very well, then I think that Higgins does have a little bit of a comeback life here. So all Monangai and Higgins is fine. The pivot would be Monangai for Carter, and I could flip-flop on that all day. And the reason I flip-flop on it all day is because the projections are very similarly. It just depends on what situation you like better. Stroud or Stafford is Stroud for us here for all the reasons we said before. Tyler Warren, Dalton Schultz, Colby Parkinson. It's Dalton Schultz for me.
Yes, it is.
There's lots of stats to back that up. And one of the things to keep your eye on stat-wise for that is that in general, when we look at when we look at the targets for tight ends, yes, the Raiders only allow about 5 targets, but that's around league average for tight ends in general. And then when we look at Warren, who's to say how Rivers will play? And Colby Parkinson's right around that average anyway, between 4 to 6. Schultz is more loved by Stroud, and I think that Schultz has a better game. Stroud or Dart, Manny? It's Stroud. You can go back in the episode and watch us talk a little bit more about why Dart's not a good play this week, and Stroud is just average. He's not going to lay the world out. He's not going to be an exceptional start this week, but he is better than Dart this week. PPR, Flex Shakir, Michael Carter. Oh, Lord Jesus, Pete. No, the reason I said Lord Jesus is because
Pete, you're in trouble, man.
Shakir and Carter are 2 of the guys that for both of us are just very ho-hum this week. I think Shakir.
I think Michael Carter might be ho-hum for me for eternity.
I think Shakir probably projects around 10 points. And I think that Carter is very similar, but he's going to have to do a lot to get there. So I lean Shakir over Michael Carter. And then when it comes to Kelsey or Schultz,
I think it has to see if Rice is out, it's Kelsey for me because he'll be the only one that Minshew
Kelsey has a better matchup, more total targets to go around. And they're not really splitting those targets so like evenly between Travis Kelsey and Noah Gray, like at times that they could be.
No, they're just going Kelsey.
So I'm on Kelsey over Schultz in that regard. There's a little bit of touchdown upside there. I have Gibbs, Henderson as running back, Nico and Waddle as the wide receivers. I know for you, you can't bench Waddle, but like, I'd be on Shakir over Michael Carter. Which tight end? Warren, Waller, Gatson, or Theo Johnson? It's Waller for me.
It's Waller.
Again, you can go back, Patrick, and watch yesterday's episode and today's episode. Even with Quinn Ewers, I am very much not concerned for Darren Waller because of the way that Quinn Ewers did key in on Gunnar Helm as tight ends at Texas. What I am concerned about for Quinn Ewers is the amount of total pass attempts that he will have. So I project him somewhere in that like 180 range of total yards. But if he's able to get, say, 28 pass attempts, Waller's going to have a pretty good game. I'm a little more concerned about Waddle, definitely concerned about Malik Washington and Nick Westbrook-Akine.
Well, you saved that kicker question for last.
Waller is definitely one of the guys that
Everyone logs off on our last question and kicker questions. You saved that for last.
All right, Patrick, we'll save that question for last. Brissett or May? Patrick, there's a lot of reasons to like Drake May this week, but I'm on Jacoby Brissett. CJ, Purdy, Love, or Shook? I'm on Purdy out of that grouping of guys.
Yeah, it's like only because Vele's out though. I would have been on Shook.
Yeah, I would have been on Shook if Vele was in, but again, with Vele out, I'm not in on that. So we're going to go back up and we're going to get to the questions we did not clear earlier that came in before the show went live.
There's not many of them though. We hit most of them.
With Tua getting benched, does that hurt HN's value? Because we know when Thompson was under center, HN disappeared. I do think that this can hurt HN's value.
I definitely think it does.
However, the opportunities are not going to go away. What will happen, though, is the defenses will key in and they will chomp down a little bit more on that tight, close to the line of scrimmage for Quinn Ewers. And because Quinn Ewers cannot beat you deep, they're going to play in probably a little bit more, and they're probably going to send an extra attacker to go after and get Quinn Ewers and rattle him. And I think for that reason that as a runner, HN will probably suffer. As a pass catcher, probably about the same. You're probably going
a lot of checkdowns.
You're probably going to see like Kenny Gainwell type numbers out of him. We answered this question a little bit earlier.
And the Jason
Rumpel. We got to get to Prash's question here, Joe.
I thought you answered one already.
No, we answered Praylin, not Prash's.
We answered the same content as question, which is Watson or Reed. And my answer is with Watson, he's too hit or miss for me. An injury makes it too big of a risk. I'd rather go with Reed.
That's fair. Assuming I start Javonte and Barkley at my running backs, I think that's fine. Am I crazy for benching Kyron due to Corum's 50-50 work in a hard matchup? I need to start 2 out of Kyron, Hampton, Vidal, Carter, Sutton, Terry. So if I'm starting 2 out of that grouping of players, I'm starting Sutton for sure.
Yep. I'm still playing Kyron, though.
With the news
game's on the line, they give it to Kyron first.
With the news, though, that Quinnen Williams might not play, Hampton has become a little bit more attractive in these comparisons.
That's true.
But again, the line for the Chargers has not been good in terms of running game.
It's not.
So
Very
I do still lean Kyren for you, Jason, but I gave you those stats to share why Kyren might be a scary play this week. There's only 22 rushing attempts to go around. If that's done 50-50, you're looking at 11 attempts for Kyren, and that's just not enough.
It could be a touchdown, though.
And they haven't allowed a touchdown to running backs recently in a while, so that's concerning to me. So if you are concerned about that and you do not want to root for that on Thursday night and you do not want that ruining your weekend,
that was a very good defense.
Then Hampton would be the other play. So Sutton and Hampton would be the guys that I would play over Kyren. But I see a universe where Kyren can do well, but I also see an equal amount of universes where he might not. So I do have concerns about that. Are we playing London if he plays? The same injury as Bowers, risky, and both came back being garbage. Also, Chiefs D or Saints D this week. I'm on Saints D this week, knowing that the Jets offense is equally not as good as the Saints offense is. So I'm on the Saints on that one. Now, I said to you, Jesse, I believe, about London is that London, let me go blow my nose, Joe. Handle this question, please.
All right, we'll hit this one up for you, Bob. The thing with London is, you guys know I'm not on the bus, and if so your question is basically, with his injury and Bowers showing that it's hard to recover from, should you be relying on that? And my answer is no. In terms of the defenses, the Saints defense is such a better spot, both in terms of competition and injury status. I would definitely go with the Saints defense. There's a couple people on that ones who are playing for some big money contract on that Saints defense. Start one, Warren with the 88-year-old quarterback, Waller with no Tua.
67-year-old quarterback. Did you hear the reason why he came back? Because he was able to get 5 more years of insurance for his family.
That's 100% it.
Because he has like 8 kids. So,
he's got grandkids now, man.
It's wild. Waller, no Tua. Loveland, if no Komet.
It's still Waller, though. I mean, Jason, we go through all the jokes aside. The answer is Waller.
Jason, this is the thing. Like I said, I like Waller, Loveland, and Schultz this week. But what I am keeping my eye on is Loveland, okay? Is that if Komet's not playing, if Burden's not playing, Rome is already out, okay?
Yeah, they might have to give him the ball by default.
But again, Parsons is out as well. So that does affect how Green Bay is going to play defense. So again, for all the reasons you like Swift and Monangai this week, Joe, there's reason to believe that without reliable pass catchers.
The chief reason is I don't know that they're trying to protect Caleb Williams because he's not good. I mean, that's the chief
but
reason.
There should be opportunities for Loveland. So like I said, I still like Waller over Loveland, but if the opportunity presents itself and Cole Komet's out and Burns out and Rome is out, Loveland's a great play this week when you consider all those opportunities that could be there for him. Who are your top 3 quarterbacks in order of starting this week out of this grouping of players? It's Brissett, and then a tie between Bo Nix and Joe Burrow.
And mine is Burrow, then Brissett, and I don't like Bo Nix.
You know what? Trevor ain't bad, but again, I gave you a lot
Trevor
of.
Ain't bad. I'm not saying that, but that's how I would go about it.
Start 5 from Jason here. 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, 2 flexes. Rico, Hampton, or Vidal. Pollard, Carter, Kamara if he plays. Tet, Wandale, Shakir, Burton. To start with, I'm on Wandale.
That one's fair.
And I'm on Wandale. Again, it's not an incredible matchup, okay? And the Vikings are, like I said, they should be
gross at the end of this answer.
They should be a great defense to play this week. But when you look at the total number of targets with Jackson Dart and Jameis Winston that Wandale has had, he hasn't had under 8 in the last 5 weeks. So any wide receiver that's getting 8 opportunities to catch the ball, I want it.
You got to go with it. It's just the way it is.
Ted is not getting enough of those opportunities to be super relevant right now, and that's scary.
And we hit that on the top of the show about the Carolina passing attack.
So Wandale is going into my wide receiver spot. So then that also lands me into basically running backs and Shakir. in the running backs and the flex positions potentially.
Yeah, pretty much where you're at. So I would put Omarion and Pollard as your two backs, Shakir as the receiver, and now we're having a conversation between if they're a healthy group of Kamara,
No, there's only one receiver,
Burden, or Vidal.
Joe, it's only one receiver, and if you got Wandale there,
yeah, I'm saying, but Shakir's my first flex.
Okay.
So, I'm missing Rico on there. Rico would be the easy second flex. I'm sorry, that's that.
Yeah, and I'm equally on Dowdle for the opportunities. So again, the Tampa Bay does not offer a lot of rushing attempts. They offer a little bit more passing opportunities. This is where you could see a little bit more value for Chuba this week, where he might see a little bit more targets if he has a third down role. But I still think that Rico is a good play. Again, the opportunities will be limited in this game for Rico Dowdle. I want to touch on Tony Pollard for a minute, Joe, because you did touch on him, is that there's going to be 22 total attempts in this game. Now, Kansas City is a phenomenal rush defense right now, but with those 22 opportunities and with Tajay Spears over the last several weeks only getting between 3 to 8 carries, if you are getting 22 carries, take away 8, right? You're sitting at around 14 total carries for Tony Pollard. And that's either going to look like 14 for 30 or 14 for 70, or maybe he ends up getting 20, 21, 20, or 18 for 100. So like Pollard is a good play this week. If you want to start Michael Carter, start Michael Carter. That's the thing about Michael Carter, guys, is that Michael Carter is such a low floor guy right now. If he doesn't fall into the end zone, he's not accumulating as many yards as he needs to be super relevant. Kamara, we can't say for sure today. I wouldn't play him if he's hurt, but if he's playing, he has the best matchup on the slate from a rushing attempts perspective. But again, he's not rushing the ball as much as some of these other running backs or players. So for me, it'd be Rico, Hampton, Wandale, Pollard, and then Shakir, just because of the volume. KJ, I'm still starting Waller as my tight end one, or should I pivot off of him into Parkinson plays tomorrow? I'm still starting Waller. Everything that I have said earlier about Waller, I still think rings true. He's going to have the same number of opportunities, most likely, as Colby Parkinson this week.
And guys, I'm telling you, Parkinson's a red herring. He is not going to get the love you guys all want him to just because Adams is out.
Yeah,
Nick's over Caleb. And I started with Tro was the first one answered of the day.
Okay, so you already answered that one?
Yep.
Sweet. All right, so let's see if any other questions came in while we were.
We did have some come in. We're still going to end on that kicker question, guys, because I know you all log off once you start talking kickers.
Devonta Smith or Kaminungai this week, Joe?
Devontae, that one's easy.
All right.
The upside of Devontae just dwarfs the downside potential of Monangai. So, should have mentioned your flex. The other flex was Genty.
Yeah, take him out. Take Genty out. I'll say it again.
You can't bench A-Chain. You know what? Bob and I haven't been these debates about the studs from the first round, about who can you bench, you can't. I am going to die on the hill of J-Jeff. And Bob is watching this burn and this dumpster fire happen. I cannot pull J-Jeff out of my lineup, and I understand why you can't pull A-Chain out too. I get it.
I'm still not benching A-Chain because I think he has Kenny Gainwell like in a week upside with seven receptions. I still think those are gonna be there.
Would we start Waddle or Zay? There's lots of reasons not to look at Waddle.
And there's lots of reasons not to look at Zay. There's an equal number of the same reasons to not look at Zay.
But I'm going with Baltimore because they are as hungry as a dog as you can be.
I hate both.
Equally. You're allowed to hate both. I ain't saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying I would probably go with Zay. And by the way, my prediction is when we show up here next week, the Steelers and Ravens will be tied.
Here's my question, Joe. Before I continue, go back to that question. Caden, there is a real-world circumstance where both of the quarterbacks that these two wide receivers are tied to both throw for under 20 attempts. And I hate that. I hate that because Lamar I'm debating myself between Lamar and Stafford as a realistic debate right now. One of those debates that I never thought was going to happen at the beginning of the season. So, I similarly have to make that decision. Taysom Hill goes for 50 this week, catches one, runs one in, throws one. Heard it here first. Family, I know we love Taysom Hill on the program, but he's like 47 years old.
Yeah, he is 50.
He's so old. He is not a young guy anymore. 4.5 years, just reset it. So got paid and 5 years of insurance. Yeah, it's smart. Like if I was Phillip Rivers, yeah, sure, bring me back for a couple of games. If I injure myself, I'm back on the insurance. Caden, again, when I look at this question, I'm really not comfortable with either of these guys this week. I would tend to lean Zay for the Lamar factor, and I'm not excited about Quinn Ewers. Roll with Tyler Warren versus the Niners week or pick up Gadsden versus the Cowboys. I think that Tyler Warren is a reasonable
I think you touch him, unfortunately.
I think that Tyler Warren's a reasonable play over Gadsden. It sucks that that's kind of like – I don't really see a huge ceiling with either of those guys, though. So that's kind of where I'm at. Dallas.
Yes, Taysom Hill is young enough to be one of Rivers' kids. He might actually be.
Oh, wait. Let me look that. Hold on. Taysom Hill is 35 years old. Rivers
is like 44. That would be tight.
Rivers is 44, so it's not possible.
I mean, it's possible. It's just not probable.
It's not possible at all. Unless there was some hanky-panky going on when he was like 10 years old.
You never know. It's Phillip Rivers.
Bandit. Is Drake London playing Sunday? Joe just touched on this a little bit in that if it's the same kind of injury as Brock Bowers, there's a chance that London will start and then London will come out 5 plays into the game. And then Kyle Pitts will have a storm. So that is an injury to really keep your eye on for your Kyle Pitts guys and for your Drake London guys. Unfortunately, Mooney is irrelevant. But if London is out, you could get a sneaky David Sills in there. Kirk Cousins seemed to liked him too over Mooney, which is I hate that for my team, but that's fine. Would you drop Houston's kicker Kamani Fairbairn for Eddie Pinheiro? I'm still taking Fairbairn.
Who's kicking questions in here?
It was Quincy. Quincy knows I like kickers. I'm still rolling Fairbairn, but there's reason to believe that Pinheiro is going to have a good game too. Like I said, I think that both Fairbairn and Pinheiro both score above 10 points. Mitchell
between Mitchell, London, Waddle, and Godwin, I'm probably going Godwin. That's an unfortunate group. I can tell you back. If the Jets are playing a real quarterback, I'd go with Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm on Adonai Mitchell, but the problem with Mitchell, and this is like a weird one, over the last 4 games, the Saints have not been allowing a lot to wide receivers at all. It's one of the lowest on the slate in both yardage, attempts, and total receptions allowed. So that's a really, 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 really rough spot to get into. When we look at Godwin, on the other hand, Godwin's opportunities are probably going to be a little bit better. Carolina offers more attempts to wide receivers. And like I said, I think that Godwin's probably going to end up in that 5 to 8 reception category. I lean Godwin here, guys. But if you want to play London, sure. Like I said to Jesse, London is a reasonable enough play because if
a lot of risk in that play.
Listen, if he's playing and he's got the good to go, Kirk Cousins is going to line him up for like 10 targets. So
Trone, with dropping Juwan Johnson for Parkinson, I would not have done that with Vele out, but I also understand not wanting to start Toussaint. So I can be justified either way. I just wouldn't have done it.
I definitely wouldn't have done it. One of the reasons why I wouldn't do it is when we look at the total number of opportunities that Juwan can get, we're looking at over the last 4 games, 7 targets, 9 targets, 4 targets, 4 targets. So while they have been less the last 2 games, we see 2 games where he can spike at 9, and I don't think Colby Parkinson can do that. Did you guys see the previous follow-ups for who I'm starting? Let's get it.
As far as I can tell, we answered all of them because all I have left on the queue is one kicker question.
Yeah, so let's get what we were talking about was your follow-up here to BTJ and Myers. I do want to start BTJ and Myers this week. Joe is hesitant on that. I'm
hesitant on BTJ, but not on Myers.
I am good with Brock Purdy over Stafford, but I could see a universe where you want to start Stafford. I'm just very hesitant about it this week in a game that they technically don't have to win. they would like to win it, but they technically don't have to win it. Henderson and Gibbs and Kyron are absolutely guys that you can have in your lineup. I think that they're great running backs. One of the other things that I want to mention, let's get it, is that if you're looking for a flex, right? And we were talking about your flexes earlier, is I really like Franklin and I really like MHJ if MHJ is playing. And I think that MHJ and Wilson are in for good opportunities. Same with Franklin if Pat Bryant's not playing. Woody Marks, if he plays, has one of the best matchups on the slate. Better than Kyron and better than Henderson. But Marks can't stay healthy. Nope. So for all those reasons, do I have a problem starting BTJ and Myers? No, I don't. But if I wanted to pivot off of one of them, you could pivot off the one you think Pat Surtain, if Pat Surtain's healthy, is going to see the most, and that would be BTJ. So then you look at it and you say, okay, Myers, MHJ, Franklin, one of those two guys, I'm fine with that. The opportunity should be there pending health. Mitchell would be off. Coker would be off. Purdy, I'm definitely on. And I'm probably still starting the Broncos defense, but also just understand that the Broncos defense is probably one of those plays that is a red herring this week because the Jacksonville Jaguars can score. This is a potential playoff matchup, future playoff matchup.
Yeah.
So we look at it and we say the Vikings in that debate is probably a reasonable play to make because the teams that they're facing is not crazy, right?
There is a crazy home field advantage in Denver this time of the year, though.
All right.
Plus against a team from Florida.
See you, family. Kicker. Family's like kicker talk. Ugh.
Here's your kicker question.
You're welcome. Let's get it. So the last question, Dowdle or Hampton? It's Hampton for us. If Quinnen Williams is out, particularly if Quinnen Williams is out, it's Hampton for us. And Mando, what's happening? Start 2. DK, Pickens, Myers, Reed. You're not going to get me to be not on Jacoby Myers. I believe Mando, I believe in yesterday's episode, we talked about these players. So you can go back and look that up. I'm not really 100% sure if we did. But I could see a universe here where Jacoby Myers and DK Metcalf are the better plays on the slate than Pickens and Reed.
I agree with that too. We never thought we'd say something like that.
Just because the opportunities will be there. Mevis versus Seattle, Reichert versus the Giants, Gonzalez versus Arizona, Little versus Denver. Weather is something to be concerned about. I did hear that there could potentially be steady rain in the Seattle game. So Mevis for me would usually be the start, all things considered, out of all these kickers, but I don't fully trust it. So for that reason, I'm on Reichert. The reason I'm on Reichert is that there's a chance that the Vikings can sputter in the red zone if they get there, and Reichert is a good enough kicker to take advantage of that. If you wanted to pivot off of that into a matchup that has more implied points, it would be Little. And that is just a dealer's choice come Sunday. So yeah, I'm not on Mevis this week. I like him in general, but I'd be on Reichert and Little because I'm a little bit concerned about the rain, wind, etc. All right, guys, we are Local Football Flavor. We will see you Monday, 3:45. We hope that we will see champions. We hope that we'll see people in the finals on Monday as well. We'll keep kicking it with playoff best ball.